Let's create a floating stitch with our quilt block.
Okay, so I'm going to open this up, and I now magically have floating stitches that are going to move from spot to spot and not have a connecting stitch.
So what we are going to actually create are these little stitches, and we're going to do that in the seam instead of doing it on a flat piece of fabric. And we're doing it in the software. Okay, so hopefully now everybody understands what floating stitches are. So we're going to actually do this in the software and then stitch it out in the hoop. That's what those pictures were, and I just did a small block 120 by 120. So what we're going to do, first thing I want you to do is I want you to go to the View tab, and I want you to make sure that you have the grid set to 1/4 inch. So I'm going to do that 0.25 inch. Comes out to like 6 millimeters. It's really close to 1/4 inch. That just means that each one of those boxes are going to be 1/4 inch. I'm going to go back over to the frame tab, and there's a bunch of little floating stitches that are available for you under the group of FOF category 8.5. So there's all these wonderful, you can pick any one of these, and it's going to work the same way. What's going to happen is it's going to stitch along here. It's going to cover two sides of the fabric, so 2 pieces of fabric for this, what we're going to do, and it's going to continue that. And then when it's done stitching, you're going to open up the 2 pieces of fabric that have been laid right sides together, and you're going to see this stitch. So let's go grab the first one. So the first one I'm going to do is floating stitches, and I'm just going to grab the very first one on the list, and I'm going to also change the width just a little bit because the 20 millimeters fits right to the very edge of the hoop, and we want to do just smaller than that. I'm going to change proportional because I want the heights to be the same, and I'm just going to drop this down like 0.2 millimeters. It just means that each one of the floating stitches are going to be 0.2 millimeters smaller than what they normally were, but that's just so that we have it, and I'm going to do OK. So before I actually apply this, this is one of those stitches, this is a basting stitch, this is one of the floating stitches, this is a basting stitch, this is a floating stitch, and this is a basting stitch. I'm just going to get rid of everything here, so I'm going to do a Control A and delete. So I need to make sure that I hit apply, and it's going to pop it right there to the center, and I'm going to move that up here. About the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down. All right, then I want to do another floating stitch, and I'm going to go and I'm going to do select motif. This one time I want to do a different one, so it doesn't matter which one it is. Let's do one that's kind of different. I like this, the rounded one, or even this one. And I'm going to do, again, uncheck proportional, drop it down by 2 millimeters, 0.2 millimeters, and then I'm going to make sure that this is not selected because otherwise it's going to group. Actually, I don't have group checked, so it shouldn't group it. So it should just put it right down there, right down below. And I'm going to put that one right across the center. So I want one more, and I'm going to go to select motif. And I'm going to actually grab, let's grab this guy. Again, this one is a little bit different, so it's already going to be fine for our purposes. We're going to do OK. I'm going to do apply. And move that one down. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one is going through that, or that straight stitch is going through that 5th line over. I'm going to actually, if you notice, I have circles, so I'm going to just move it over just a little bit. I could also go to home and say move into hoop. Let's see where this one's sitting. This one's not quite in the hoop either, but I think this one is. Okay. So now what I want to do is I actually want to lay a basting stitch that's going to come along here that's going to help me lay down my fabrics. So, but because I don't want, blue always is the beginning stitches, so it's always going to grab blue to be the first thing that stitches. Let's go and change this. First one here, I'm going to do this one, and I'm just going to change it to a pink. It doesn't matter what it is because you can change the thread. I just want these to be different so that they don't go and color sort and sew together. I need them to stop each time. I'm going to grab red. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is I'm going to get this basting stitch that's here. So I'm going to go into select motif. I'm going to change this from Pfaff to Husqvarna Viking. I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to leave it at utility, and I want stitch number 22. I like using that basting stitch because it's, whoops, 22. I'm sorry, I was wrong. It's stitch number 24, and it's nice and long. If you notice the width is 6 millimeters, I'm going to do OK. And I'm going to have this one selected because I want to actually have that be like the second thing that actually stitches. So, and I can move things around. I love this film strip, and that's what I love about it. So if you are using the older software, you can't do it quite as easily. But I need the length to be 120. Actually, I'm going to drop it down just to about 118. I'm going to do OK, apply. And it's actually going to stitch right after this. And I'm just going to move this down a little bit. I'll move it down to that first line. So that is about a 1/4 inch. So your fabric is going to actually, when you lay your fabric down on your hoop, you're going to actually stitch this first. You're going to lay the edge of your fabric, 2 pieces of fabric, right sides together, face down, and the edge is going to be here, and the bulk of the fabric is going to be this way. So because that's going to stitch first, I'm going to actually take that and I'm going to slide that up first. I want that to stitch first. Then I want this one to stitch second. So when you're done stitching this one, you're going to open that second piece of fabric. You've got 2 fabrics, remember, laying face to face here. And I'm going to open up this one that's on top here and open it up, and I'm going to then open it so I can actually see these stitches along that seam line. And so now when it lays down, it's going to come down this way, and I actually need it to come so that it's about here. I was using 2.5 inch strips, gave me lots of extra room to do this. So the next thing I need to do is I need to know where to lay the other piece of fabric. So I've got one piece of fabric that's going to lay down this way now, and it's right side up. I need to lay a second piece of fabric right side down on top of it and have it so go along this edge. So to do that, I'm going to actually grab this guy. Oh, that's not the one I want. I want this one. I want this guy selected. I still have my basting stitch selected. I'm going to do apply. And it's going to come in here. And I actually want to take, and that stitch is going to tell me where I need to make sure my fabric is going to lay. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to drop it down so that it's right on that line. So now it's going to stitch this, and then it's going to stitch this on top of 2 pieces of fabric. You're going to open up the fabric, and then the edge of that second piece of fabric should be coming down past that point. Now you're going to stitch this down, and it's going to hold that down, and it's going to then tell you where you need to lay that other piece of fabric that's going to lay here. You're going to lay it right side down, and the edge is going to be here, and it's going to be laying up this way. And I'm going to have to actually probably stitch this out as I do this so that you can actually see what I'm doing. But I want this to stitch on both pieces of fabric. So I have step 1, step 2. I need this to be step 3, so I'm going to move it up. And this is step 4, and I'm going to move it up. Now I want this one. So now when this is done stitching, I'm actually going to open this up, and I'm going to expose those stitches, and it's going to come down, and it's going to be, again, I'm using 2.5 inch strips, so it's going to more than amply cover down here. I haven't stitched this yet, but I need to have a marking line again. So I still have the basting stitch all chosen. I'm going to do apply, and again, I want this to come down here. So I've got my fabric opened up. I'm laying, so it should completely cover down this way. I'm going to do this stitch. And that stitch is going to kind of hold that one piece of fabric in place. And then I'm going to lay a second piece right side down and along the edge of those stitches. Then I'm going to actually stitch this. And then I'm going to do a stitch all the way around so I have a 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to I've got this one. But I need to do some changing of colors. So this is my first stitch. Blue is fine for that one. This one I've already changed. This one I need to change because I don't want this one, and this one all stitching at the same time. Because if I do a color sort, it's going to be a problem. So I'm going to come down to that line. I'm going to change that. And I'm going to change that. I'm going to pick on the greens over here. This one, I need to do the same thing, change the color so it doesn't, and I'm going to change it to something totally different. So there isn't anything that's the same. Now, the other thing to think about, when I go to stitch this out, if I do the player, what happens is it's going to stitch that line, and when it stitches that line, you're going to lay your two pieces of fabric down. But look at where it jumps. It sews from here to here, and it jumps over to here. So let's flip this so that it's going to start here instead of over here. Going to cut down our jump stitches. We're going to do that. So we're going to grab this guy. I'm going to do a right mouse button. I'm going to go to Properties. I'm going to go to 180. And I'm going to do OK. Okay? So now what happens when this stitches out is it's going to stitch along, and it's going to stitch that first line where I'm going to lay my fabric. Now it's going to do that floating stitch going that way, and then it's going to come down, and it's going to find my next place. So I've opened up my fabric, and it's going to be laying down. I'm going to stitch this, and it's going to hold that piece of fabric in place. It's also now going to tell me where I need to lay this piece of fabric here, and it's going to be right side down and along that line. But again, when I do that, see what happens? It's going to do that big long jump. So I'm just going to take this guy. I'm going to do a right mouse. I'm going to do Properties. I'm going to do 180 and flip that one. And then I'm going to do the same thing. The same process is going to be there. So I'm going to go to Properties, and I'm going to do 180 and do OK. All right. So now what's going to happen when it stitches, I'm going to walk you through this. It's going to stitch this piece first. That's a basting line. I know now where to lay my two pieces of fabric that I have, and I need to lay them face right sides together, and the edge is right along here, and the bulk of the fabric is this way. All right? So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to stop. Now I'm going to, with those two pieces of fabric still laying on top of each other, I'm going to stitch this. Just follow it through. Oh. Now, before this stitch starts to stitch, you're going to open up this fabric and you're going to lay it down so that it is laying down this way. So you have, this is your seam, and when you open that up, you're going to start seeing those little stitches there. We want to open up that seam and lay it flat. Now stitch this down to hold that fabric in place. Before it starts to stitch this line of stitches, what you're going to do is you're going to lay another piece of fabric right side down with the one edge along here and the bulk of the fabric this way. So I'm going to go watch that play again. And as it finishes, and before it stitches that next basting line, I'm going to stop this. Before it starts stitching this, you're going to open up this fabric, you're going to lay it down, and you're going to lay it flat so that it's open. Then you're going to stitch this. It's going to hold your fabric in place. You're going to lay in, before it starts stitching the decorative stitches, the floating stitches here, you're going to lay another piece of fabric on top using this as one edge of your fabric. Fabric's going to be face down. And then you're going to allow it to stitch this. When you're all done with that, you're going to open it up. And if you want to finger press, it really does, you need to kind of pull on these to kind of open it all up. Okay? I hope that's making sense. Now I want to actually put a stitch all the way around the outside edge. So I'm going to go back over to the frame. And I don't need this to be anything much more than a basting stitch. It just kind of gives me a stitching line. So I'm going to go to frame, make sure nothing is selected. There's no boxes around any of this. And I don't want a margin. I just want that to be right there at the very edge. And I'm going to put actually a 1 millimeter in there. I don't care if it groups. I don't need that. I need a running stitch, and I need it to be stitch type running stitch. I'm going to make this a 6.0. And I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to change the color so it doesn't try and interfere with something. So now it's going to stitch all out. So then the next thing I'm going to have is I'm going to do a video and actually stitching this out so that you actually have that so you can watch and see what I'm talking about.